So I have some time at this period in my life to think about how I engage with the world, what I am to be about. I've had some thoughts recently on politics, where I find what's going on the left, I'm typically estranged from because I don't identify with its hallmark movements, its sort of hallmark qualities today. One thing that's been a little bit disappointing for me is slowly coming to the opinion that the right wing, uh, all these political movements tend to be kind of like international at this point, but I'll limit it to the U.S. The right wing is not. There are a few people who seem to be, I'd say, at the vanguard of cultural issues. And some of these people may find themselves basically on the political right, whether they planned on it or not. But the very important conversations, I'd say, on the right, are very much dominated by bullshit political hierarchies and overwhelming just like pure political considerations that are disinterested in thinking about what's best for society, and starting there as a foundational point. It's all very personality driven, allegiance driven. So the right wing is not actually in a healthy state today. I'm not sure it's going to get better. If we had an infinite amount of time, I'm sure it would get better at some point. But I mean, in the short term, or at least in the relevant long term, there's no reason to assume it's going to get better. But this is a little bit upsetting, to say the least. We're supposed to have political movements that naturally become, centers of gravity for contribution, and we don't really have that. And the way this is playing out in D.C. is also just a little bit silly. On the right, there's the battle between the establishment, right of center, and then the more extreme MAGA people. And the way that plays out, as a spectator to this, from what I read, none of this strikes me as worth anyone's time, to be frank. I can't imagine some of the conversations that, like, how do I put this? I don't wish to say that everything then that's going on the right in relation to this struggle over the soul of the party is like useless, or that's not what I mean. What I mean is, it's going to change. Those changes are going to happen kind of in the aggregate. There's these individual battles don't matter so much, so it's kind of silly for, as an example, I don't know, very gatekeeper-esque. I wanted to say gatekeepery, came out as gatekeepy. That's kind of funny. But gatekeeper-esque institutions, their opinion doesn't matter very much, because what drives the political identity of the right is not an institutional conversation. Institutions have some weight, I suppose, but in the grand scheme of things, for better or worse, it won't matter as far as the identity of the party goes. So it seems right now, and there's a lot of gatekeeping on the right, and it's especially in D.C. And it's really ridiculous how people go about this. So, obviously a lot of the changes happening on the political right are pretty ludicrous, and it's kind of like, well, you've sort of, the institutions have ignored a lot of the brewing conversations on the political right, so it's not really a surprise that those forces would become kind of destabilizing and very difficult to wield control over. So, and that they would also be a little stupid because they haven't been they've been just ignored. So there's been plenty of opportunity for neglect. So, yeah, like, of course, the conversation happening is pretty unruly. Secondarily, or in addition to this point, it's too late to change things, and none of you offer the antidote because the institutions have decided to disengage from the very important conversations happening on the right. So now they just kind of seem like headless chickens reacting to the butcher's blade, posthumously, in effect. Yeah, that's not really. I mean, you save a lot of time by just not being a part of that conversation. You understand? So it's meaningful. It's going to happen, but to really get bogged down in it is not very useful. So the changes are going to happen. The chips will fall, and then we can understand how they fall, and then react to that in the future once the future comes to Washington in whatever form. Now, having said all of that, I don't even believe that let's take as an example, let's say J.D. Vance becomes the president in 28 or something. I mean, to me, the stuff that Vance what seems to compose his opinions, it's not very interesting. Catholic traditionalism, isolationism, American nationalism. These are anyone who views these ideas as, certainly if you view these things as fringe, you live under a rock. And if you view these things as novel, I'd say you've been ignoring a lot over the last decade and longer. These aren't very exciting ideas, to be honest. So, but let's take, for example, because DC is filled with these dinosaurs who find this stuff strange. Let's say a J.D. Vance presidency normalizes these kinds of ideas, and then other strange ideas. People like Yarvin, Bronze Age, or whatever. I don't bring these guys up to sort of proffer them as I make no moral judgment on them, no, not even like an intellectual judgment. I'm just saying, say these things these kinds of ideas become more normal or whatever. All right, I guess it matters if the DC establishment love of precedent is so thoroughly brutalized, and if the gatekeeping aspect is embarrassed or shows its weaknesses in a more extreme form. Okay, fine, but it's kind of like this was due to happen for years now, so it's not that fascinating. And then even the ideas that are being offered on the dissident right don't seem like they're going to last for very long. They've kind of had some momentum to the extent that they have been ignored. That they have suffered a really kind of silly injustice in the sense that they've been ignored by people who should have been listening. They've been treated as though they had no points to offer. There was nothing fascinating about them at all. That was all artificial. That was an artificial suppression of these ideas. So they gained momentum in that regard. But once they enter the mainstream, or enter the mainstream in the fullest and most inhibited way that they possibly can, I think they'll quickly fade away, because I don't think those ideas are very meaningful for most Americans or most people, and they'll show their weaknesses at the practical level rather quickly, which means what seems like the future of politics on the right, stuff like this Vance kind of, advanced collocated ideas, is only going to be the future quite briefly, is my guess. And then we'll be on a totally new adventure. Once we are no longer in a position where, people have to be reacting to either the politically correct regime or the gatekeepers regime, then there won't be so much momentum behind these ideas, and people can go in other directions. that's my anticipation. I mean, I'll see if I'm right about this, but I find like a lot of the sort of goobery aspect of these subcultures will start to become very vulnerable once the mainstream kind of catches wind of them, or once people start asking questions as to so exactly what kind of ideas has Vance been toying around with or enabling, or what sort of communities feel like they've been enfranchised by his presidency. I mean, once you start getting people investigating these things, when they can't sort of be casted aside as too strange or problematic, there's not a lot there, to be honest, that has staying power in my view. And so I share all this because I no longer, I mean, I just don't, I think that the both political camps in this country, both political sides with, gradations along the extreme poles, I think these sides are really uninteresting. I'm losing interest, and I would like for something just very different, a wholly new paradigm to emerge, hopefully in not too long a period of time. All right, goodbye.